Welcome students, I am Dr. Darshan Sabarwal, Assistant Professor, Department of Management, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences, Bhopal. Students, today we shall discuss something about control. The contents to be discussed in present day session are meaning and concept, definition, characteristics, need for controlling, importance, process, effective control systems and techniques of control. So what is control? As we all know that control means having the ability to overpower something. Control in management refers to comparing the differences between the actual performances with the desired ones. So control consists of the steps taken in management to confirm that plans are being implemented and results being obtained as per the expected ones. That means we decide some plans beforehand, some actions beforehand, we want some desired results, and then after the activity is being done, we expect that results are in the desired way. So we compare the actual performances with the desired performances and know if there is any deviations. Where the performance deviates from the agreed or benchmarked levels, corrective action is immediately taken. Now come to the more refined words in the words of some authors. In the opinion of Maison and Maisonneuve, control is an ongoing process of drafting standards, measuring performance, benchmarking, and taking corrective actions to ensure effective and efficient activities within an organization. That means control is ongoing process in which we used to draw standards, then measure performances, we set benchmarks, and then we take corrective actions so that efficient and effective results are gettable in the organization. In the words of Harold Kunz, controlling is the measurement and correction of performance in order to make sure that enterprise objectives and the plans devised to attain them are accomplished. So Harold Kunz opines that the controlling is the measurement and a way that we correct our performances so that our objectives and plans devised to attain those objectives are at par. In the words of Dale Hanning, control is the process of bringing about conformity of performance with planned actions. That means it is a process, control is a process in which the performance are judged with the planned action to see that whether any deviations are there. So let's move to know something more about control, and let's get the characteristics of control. First one is managerial function. So as we all know that there are 5 functions in management: planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and the last one is controlling. So control is the managerial function that completes the whole cycle of managerial functions. As we plan things in our planning function, we instill some control measures into that plans also, so that we can aware of how the performances are done. We have certain criteria to judge the performances of employees, and if deviations are there, we need to take corrective action. Next, continuous activity. As we all know that control is exercised on regular basis, and managers need to control all the activities going on in the organization. So it is not that at one time we are exercising control and for some other time we are not exercising control. It's an ongoing process and it's a continuous activity. Next, it is forward looking. So we cannot control the activities that are done in past. We need to instill control measures that can ensure the future performances on the right track. So control must be forward looking. Control is related to planning. As mentioned previously, we instill some control measures into the plans itself so that we have some criteria to judge the future performances. So control is related to planning without being criteria being involved in planning, without criteria being mentioned in planning. We cannot control the activity because then we don't have any criteria to judge the performances. So control is related to planning means the control measures should be there, or at least some criteria should be there in the plans itself, so that actual performances may be compared to the desired ones, to the planned ones. Essence of control is action. So what after control? So control gives us the basis for action. Managers need to take action on the basis of control feedback. Any deviations in the actual performances need to be taken care of, and proper action shall be taken to cure that, to make it correct. Now come to the next topic, that is need of controlling. Why controlling should be there? So as I have discussed just now, that it is the basis for future action. Managers need to take actions to ensure that activities are taking place in the organization on a desired way. So how future actions are decided? It is on the basis of feedback that we get from control process. So it makes the basis for future actions by the managers. It facilitates decision making. This is the very important function of managers. See, managers need to decide things that are going on daily basis in the organization. So for making decisions, what type of decisions are to be made? That are to an extent decided by the controlling function, because after controlling only we need to know where are the points there at which the performance is lacking, and which are the ways that needs to be corrected, so that things are back on track. It facilitates decentralization. So decentralization means when decision making power is left to the lower level managers or lower level employees. So it is not all being vested in the hands of top management only. So if we want decentralization in the organization, proper control measures should be installed at all levels, so that performances can be judged at each level and proper actions can be taken for any deviations. So if proper control measures are not there, then it is very difficult to decentralize the processes in the organization. It facilitates coordination. So when control measures are to be exercised, we must have activities done in a coordinated form. When activities are coordinated, because activities are being performed at various levels in the organization, maybe in purchase department some activities are taking place, in sales department, so everywhere some activities are being done by the employees, and then all the efforts need to be coordinated at one place to get the results, to get the organizational objectives. And if we want that our performances are to be judged on some pre-decided criteria, then the activities need to be coordinated first, the results to be known first, and then they are being compared with the desired performances or the expected performances or the criteria set in the plans. So control in a way facilitates coordination. It helps in improving efficiency. When we take proper control measures into our system and the deviations from the performances are being taken care of, remedial actions are taken regularly, then it helps the overall efficiency of the organization. Lastly, it puts psychological pressure on the employees. See, employees are conscious that their performance is being judged, somebody is looking after their performances. So this puts the psychological pressure on employees to perform better. In a way, it motivates the employees to perform better and better because their performances are being judged. So controlling puts psychological pressure on employees. Let's understand how the control goes on. Let's go to the steps of control process. So this is in this flow chart you can see that first we have to establish standards and methods for measuring performances. First, we need to set the standards or criteria against which the employees' actual performances are to be judged. And then we measure the performances of employees and we compare that whether these performances are matching the standards that we have set in plans or not. If the result is yes, performance matches with the expected one, then we don't take any action, any remedial action. And if there is anything lacking in the performance, then we need to take action, corrective action, and then we can reevaluate the standards and go on. So let's see this process in more detail. First step is establishment of standards. So we have to decide the standards or criteria itself in the planning process so that future performances can be judged against that. Then after the activities are done, the performance of employees are measured against those criteria. The third point is the comparison of actual and standard performance. We compare the performances with the criteria and find if any deviations are there. If there are deviations, then managers need to take remedial action. So students, this is the control process, and if we are instilling any control system in our organization, so it is very important that the control system should be effective enough to bring us fruitful result. So there must be some essentials of effective control system. When we are designing a control system, we should take care of some points so that we can have the successful results of that control system. So let us see what are the essentials of effective control system. The first point is reflection of organizational pattern. That means whenever control measures are arranged or designed, it must be seen that the organizational pattern should be reflective of the control system. That means if any correction is to be taken, any deviation is to be taken care of, then from which position the corrective action should be initiated. Who is the person who is looking after the performance and then needs the corrective action. So our organizational pattern, our organizational structure should be reflected in that control system. Next is feedback. An effective control system should provide effective feedback regularly so that actions can be taken for that. An effective control system should be objective. It should be free from bias so that the performance can be judged on non-partial basis. So it should be objective enough to reflect the deviations correctly and properly. Next is prompt reporting of deviations. Effective control system should be like this, that give us the indication of deviation as soon as possible. So as soon as the managers are informed about the deviations in any performance of activities, so prompt actions can be taken, and sometimes actions need to be taken so promptly so that future damages can be controlled. So it depends on what type of deviations are there. In certain cases, prompt actions are needed so that damages can be controlled or restricted. Control system, an effective control system should be forward looking. As we have discussed previously, that control system that look into the past activities will not help us. So past has gone, the activity has been done. Now we should focus on how we can correct the deviations in the performances. So it should be forward looking. It should provide such measures that can correct the action in future. Flexible. An effective control system should have enough flexible points to adapt any environmental changes in the organization. So if there are any changes that are being faced by the organization, so control system should be flexible enough to incorporate those changes and still give us results. Reflecting organizational needs. So while designing our controlling system, it should be kept in mind that each organization is different from other. Maybe the principles of designing control system are universal, but every organizational needs are different. So it should be looked upon that organizational needs should be considered while designing any control system, and on actual basis, on operating basis, control measures should be customized according to the organizational needs. Next is economical. The control system, the effective control system should be affordable by the organization. It may be like small organization may not afford the very expensive control systems which are automated ones. So it should be looked into that whatever control systems are we installing, that should be worth it the cost. So it should be economical enough that organization can afford them and then get the results of those control systems and grow in future. The last point is strategical control points. What are strategical control points? These are the points at which we can see the deviations and controlling action. So there must be some strategical control points where corrective actions can be taken. And the last one is, but not the least, it should be simple. Any control system, any effective control system should be simple to understand and use. It must be user friendly. So any complexities in the control system put forth any kind of obstacles in using them that is not user friendly with the employees will not get us effective results. So control system should be simple enough to be understandable by all who are using them in the organization. Students, the next topic is managerial control techniques. As we know that control is an important function of managers. It is the last but the very important function that completes the managerial function cycle. So we should know about what are the techniques that we can use while controlling the activities of the organization or the performances of the employees. There are certain techniques which are in use since long. Those are known as traditional techniques. There are with the invent of modern technologies, there are modern techniques also that are in use in recent times. So we are going to discuss this point, managerial control techniques, on in two categories. One is traditional techniques and another is modern techniques. So let's see what are the traditional techniques. The first one is personal observation. So what is personal observation? That is the most traditional method of control. The manager personally observes the employees or workers at the workplace. So it's a simple technique. It puts psychological pressure on the employees to perform better, and it may also involve the bias of the person who is observing the other employees. And this technique is time consuming also, but it is the traditional method. It is still in use at some places. The second one is statistical reports. So what are statistical reports? Statistical reports contain useful information regarding the performance of organization, and these information are analyzed in the form of averages, percentage, ratios, correlation, etc. And sometimes these analyses are projected in the form of charts, graphs, so that managers can easily understand those information. They provide factual data and they give us the trend which are useful for managerial control and decision making by managers. So statistical reports are very much in use and they provide useful data for the managers to control and then take the remedial actions. The next traditional technique is break-even analysis. So students, what is break-even analysis? Break-even analysis, break-even is the point where we get no profit, no loss. It is break-even. So managers use this technique to study the relationship between cost, volume and profits. The sales volume at which there is no profit, no loss, as we know, it is called as break-even point. The probable profit at different levels of sales can be determined using this technique, and we can know the production levels that can be estimated to achieve certain desirable profits. That means if we want certain quantity of certain amount of profit, then we can predict the level of production needed if we use this technique. So it's very important technique known as break-even analysis technique. Now come to the next traditional technique called as budgetary control. A budget is a formal statement of financial resources that are decided for carrying out specific activities in a given period of time. So we make budgets. We make budgets, see, for any activity, like if a wedding is to be held in our family, or if we are planning a picnic, we usually made a budget. We usually make a budget. So budget is made for deciding how much financial resources are to be put in what type of activities. So how can it be taken as a control technique? So control is exercised by comparing the actual results with the budgeted or budgeted results, budgeted data or standards already set. That means what we have decided in the budget, we have set aside certain amount of funds for any activity. If actually after doing that activity, we see whether that activity is done within that decided budget or it has exceeded the budget. So if any deviation is there, we take corrective action. We take corrective action for future. How can we make it correct? Any deviations are investigated and remedial actions then are taken upon. Now we shall discuss some modern techniques of control. First one is return on investment. As the name suggests, something in return we are getting, that is profit on the money invested in the business. Here profit is taken not as an absolute figure, but it is considered in relation to the invested capital. Rate of return is calculated by dividing the net profits by the total amount invested in the business. It indicates the effective use of capital for generating a reasonable amount of return or profit in the business. So using this technique, we come to know that whatever amount we have invested in the business, what returns we are getting. So if returns are it is equally that we are expected, or it is equally that our others are getting in the similar business, then it is okay. And if we are getting less returns, we'll find what are the causes for that and we can take the remedial action. The next modern technique is ratio analysis. Ratio analysis is a useful technique for judging the efficiency of an organization through analysis and interpretation of financial statements. So what are financial statements? Financial statements are income statement or profit and loss statement and balance sheet of a company. Ratios establish relationships between two or more values and try to derive relevant meaning from the financial statements. We are aware of certain ratios like liquidity ratios, solvency ratios and profitability ratios that reflect the financial health of the business organization. The next technique is responsibility accounting. Responsibility accounting is a system of control where responsibility is assigned for the control of cost. So here the whole organization is divided into subunits or segments called as responsibility centers, and the head of that center is responsible for achieving the targets that are set for his center. The types of responsibility centers may be like investment center, cost center and profit center. The next technique is management audit. This technique evaluates the quality of management. So very important, how we can control the quality of management. So we have this technique called as management audit, which involves the systematic appraisal of the overall performance of the management of an organization. The purpose is to review the efficiency and effectiveness of the managerial people and to improve their future performance. Now The modern techniques contain two techniques called as PERT and CPM, Program Evaluation and Review Technique, and Critical Path Method. So students, these are also the control techniques which are used explicitly for project management and evaluation. So there are sometimes unique projects are there, like construction of dams, maybe the metro projects. So for those, these techniques are used and they exhibit the flow and sequence of activities and events in a project. PERT, that is Program Evaluation and Review Technique, is a network technique which is appropriate for planning and controlling the complex and unique projects where the time needed to complete the activities are not defined or not known, whereas Critical Path Method is appropriate for the projects that involve activities with well-known time limits. Thank you.